just upgraded from. Back to you.
Oh boy, yeah, the 706 was an okay radio compared to that. I had the MCHF, one of the original ones there, that got me hooked on SDR, and man, it was just I had to have the 7300 or the like, and boy, that's my 7300 showed up on field day one year, and I did like 350 contacts the moment I pulled it out of the box. I had a good time with that thing, man. Hey, so what got you interested in radio? Over.
Well, you know, I was always interested in radio ever since I was a young teenager. My grandparents were very big into amateur radio, and down in Florida, my grandmother was an extra, my grandfather was an advanced, and my grandmother even taught at the local community college ham radio and electronics, and they always tried to get me into it, and I was very interested, but at the time, this was back in the 80s, I couldn't get my brain wrapped around the code work, so I just kind of set it aside, and then here a few years ago, I was looking back into it and found out that they had gotten rid of all the code requirements for licensing, and boy, bing, bang, boom, here I am at General, and I'm studying for my extra so that I can get my grandfather's old call sign.
Yeah, get that. That'd be really neat. Oh, how cool. What a challenge that is, too, to pull all that off. Go for it, man. That'd be really cool to have that call sign back in the family again. And here you are in New Ham, you know, and you got a great-looking signal on the scope here. You've got everything balanced out. Nothing spurious. You're not too wide at all, and still getting through the QRM this afternoon. Hey, so what's your favorite mode anymore? You got a favorite mode, Brian, or a mode, or if not a mode, do you have a favorite brand of radio, or both? Over.
Well, yeah, you know, for this sort of stuff, for the HF, well, I only have ICOMs, and I've always been a bit of an ICOM fan anyways. And with the 706, I was pretty much locked into doing a lot of FT8 stuff because it just didn't have the filtering capability to do a lot of SSB phone work. But now that I've got the 7300, boy, I've switched over. I'm doing a lot more phone than I am doing the digital modes. Though I do like FT8 some. I just hit a German research station on Antarctica last week using FT8, so that was kind of neat. And the other thing I like is JS8 Call. I've got a couple of buddies on JS8 Call that we're able to store and forward messages and things like that, so I can leave my radio on just receiving all day and come home and hear some messages from them, and we can communicate and come up with times and frequencies to chat live, and it works out really, really well. But how about yourself?
Very good, man. Yeah, you know, I dodged FT8 up until about 4 months ago, and then I'm like a junkie in here in a dark room sometimes. I love it. It's fun to at least be able to see what's going on. That's enough for me. If I can run through from 6, and I do too, depending on what radio, it'd be either 2 to 80 or 6 to 80. I'll check every band, and I'll look at my reports on my live map there on YouTube and other stuff, my ham clock. I'll look at that report and go, okay, this is the bands that are open, you know, and I don't have a beam or anything, just a couple of end-fed wires strung 2 different directions. But, you know, I'll work around and I'll play around, and I get people to answer me, and I play radio. So for me, my mode of operation is ham radio, but AM is what really started it for me, only because I had a really crappy antenna system with my first radio, and I just happened to make contact with the AMers on 75 meter around noontime, lunchtime, or something like that, and that started it for me. The round robin kind of got going, and then the other side was the noontime net here on 40 at 7284. It starts at about 9 a.m. and goes until about 13 to 1400 every day. Those guys, that original group that I met coming through years ago, were the ones that I could rely on to be on the air every day, and at least to be able to go, oh, the conditions aren't that great, or conditions are good, and still be able to say hi. Hey, so do you got any advice you'd give to a new ham if you were in front of a classroom of techs and new generals? You got any advice you'd hand them off before they left over?
Well, what I usually tell folks is whatever you can do, get some wire in the air and start playing with it and start experimenting with it. I'm on my 4th or 5th antenna, I think. I bought a 10-meter telescoping fiberglass pole from DX Engineering, and I have tried all sorts of different things. I've tried end-fed halfways that are tuned for bands. I've tried just end-fed long wires on a 49-1 on. I've tried different dipoles. I've done Z kind of dipole shaped like a Z. I've done all sorts of different things. I've spun it around by hand, trying to see what the different propagations were, and then compare that to what some software says my propagation should be. And it's I like playing with the wire, and I think that, and I love the physics behind it. And so that for me, that's a lot of fun. But get a radio that you can figure out how it functions and can get you what you want to do. But then start playing with things, start experimenting. And that's a lot of fun for me. What about you?
Man, that's the best answer I've heard in a while. That that is a lot of fun to be able to experiment with antennas. So I've got a 22-foot telescopic pole. It's for those wind socks and stuff. I got it. It's on my YouTube there. Anyway, I like that pole. So I've got it's a disc golf cart and a disc golf bag. I still play disc golf, but the bag and the cart have been promoted to amateur radio. And in the pole sits in the cart in the bag, and that's kind of its base. And I can run an end-fed wire up into a tree and actually hang the wire with my 22-foot pole, and then I'd string the wire across and stuff it in my cart and just strap it to the bench or wherever I'm at, man, and out the door I am, playing radio. I had a buddy pole system that just didn't match my kind of personality. I'm not that ginger. That thing is, you got to be, I think you lift your pinky when you use one of those. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. A lot of people love them, but I am not that ginger, man. One little bump and it'd fall over, and I'm not in a position where I wanted 10 guy lines or even 2 guy lines or 4. I'm doing POTA and SOTA the best I can, right? So I wanted things in a tight space. So my little Zuka cart and my dynamic disc bag is about the best thing I can use for portable stuff. And that 22-foot pole, man, that thing will get you on the air. Although my 18-foot pole, like 6.8 meter pole, that thing, I could run a wire straight up it, and it would be resonant on 40 meters. So I keep that old crappie pole on the side as kind of a spare. Hey, I got one more question for you, man, and I won't keep you there. What do you think the future of ham radio is in your mind, man? Is it just a bunch of bully and knuckleheads running 10 wide, or is it a bunch of kids going to come around and do some really neat stuff? What's the future of amateur radio? November 7 Echo Charlie Victor, over.
Well, yeah, Sean, I think the future really is with some of the young people. I think we're going to see some new advances, but there's some dinosaurs kind of hanging out there that are keeping some of the new innovation from coming in. And just like the Pony Express only lasted less than 18 months because then the coast-to-coast telegraph wire went in. I think some of these things that we hang on to, like CW, very, very, very valuable. However, using protocols like FT8 and JSA call, things like that, we can still do weak signal communications without CW. And so I think the young people are really going to be the future once we can really whet their appetite and they can see some of the neat things they can do, whether it be SSTV or just chatting with peers around the world field, but sitting in their basement or whatever they're doing. Some of the digital modes are just absolutely fabulous as well, for like DMR and D-Star and things like that, where you can do 2 meter and 70 centimeter, but through repeaters talking to folks around the world, and it's just absolutely fabulous. I think that's where our future truly is at. How about you?
Yeah, I would have to agree. You know, I just did a post not too long ago with a kid who had his license for 3 weeks, newest ham I've talked to in a while, and he was telling me and showing off some new digital modes, some older stuff like free DV and stuff, but he said, man, this is where it's at. We're going to be able to just fire up the waterfall and send text messages back and forth. And he sent me a picture of himself that was like 1.5 wide. It was just really narrow, really fast in a digital mode, not analog at all. And it's still slow scan and whatever, or fast scan in whatever form you want to call it, but was amazing. Ham, his age, right, that youth, they're so excited the way we were about the new fandangled whatever the heck it is. Hey, so I've got a topic going on. If you feel like you want to comment on it, I would really appreciate it. If not, just say no. So the next topic we're running is actually about bullying and whatnot through the amateur radio community, and we seem to see a bunch of passive-aggressive kind of BS, especially in social media and just the way people get responded to when they're just trying to be excited and celebrate things. You got any comments on the way amateur radio has been kind of getting bullied left and right just by the other operators? I'm not talking about outside influence or anything. Have you noticed any bullying there amongst amateur radio? Over.
Yeah, KJ7RDY here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I think it's indicative of society in general. We've lost a lot of civility. I think the last couple of years just kind of really brought that to a head. But I have witnessed it a few times, both on 2 meters, on some repeaters when I've been traveling, but I've also seen it on some of the HF bands, and even in social media, just some of the ham groups in social media, you see some of the same things, and I think people feel a boldness because they're sitting somewhat anonymously behind a keyboard or behind a microphone, and what's somebody going to do instead of saying something to their face, and unfortunately, I do see that. And I don't think we're going to turn that around without seeing a real turnaround in society in general. I think that's what it's really going to take. And that's going to take a whole host of issues. That's going to take neighbors talking to neighbors and just starting to be civil again. I don't think it's going to be anything that can be mandated. I don't think it's anything that the government could do or schools could do or anything else. We just have to start parenting our children and expecting better from each other. And I think that's what's really going to do it. So Sean, actually, I'm getting the signal from my wife to head upstairs for supper. But it's been great chatting with you. Really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be able to catch up with you again. So N7ECV, this is KJ7RDY 73, and I'll be clear with your final.
All right, KJ7RDY, thanks for your patience with me, taking the time, and I appreciate everything you said, man. It's a very valuable lesson learned. It takes a tribe, and it starts at home. But yeah, you're right. It'll take a complete turnaround of a whole. A lot has to be changed and done. Funny how people think they can just get away with what they want. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Catch me on YouTube if you get half a notion there. Have a great evening. 73 from me, Freda. Good evening. This is Sean, N7ECV. Nice to meet you, okay?
Yeah, it was great meeting you too, Sean. It's KJ7RDY, and I'm clear.
November 7 Echo Charlie Victoria. Talking Shack.